Frozen in shock, the alien girl watched a single human ship arrive. Liari stood on the edge of the frozen ridge, her small hands pressed against the cold, rough rock. The wind howled across the jagged peaks, carrying sharp flakes of ice that stung her face. She pulled her fur cloak tighter around her thin shoulders and looked down at the city below. The ruins stretched farther than she could see. Once, this place had been full of life, of color and laughter. Now it was silent, except for the wind and the distant groans of collapsing buildings. The Vailari had ruled this world for generations. They had built towers that reached the clouds and machines that could bend light. They had explored the stars long before the Tharn arrived. But now, the Tharn Collective had taken everything. The Tharn were massive, ruthless, and relentless. They did not care for cities, for people, or for life. They cared only for control. Lari hugged herself. She was only 15 cycles old, barely grown into her adult form. She had lost her parents, her teachers, and her friends. Most of her people were gone, hiding in caves or scattered to the far corners of the ice plains. She had seen fleets burn from above, and she had seen families destroyed in a single strike. And yet, somehow, she had survived. She did not understand why. Maybe it was luck. Maybe it was stubbornness. Or maybe, she thought with a small flicker of hope, it was something else. For months, the sky had been empty. No ships came. No signals reached the planet. The Tharn patrolled the outer orbit, and anyone who dared to rise above the atmosphere disappeared without a trace. Liari's heart ached whenever she thought about rescue. She did not dare hope any more. And then she saw it. A bright flash of light tore across the sky. At first, she thought it was a star falling from the heavens, but the shape became clear. A ship appeared, small and solitary, dropping from faster-than-light travel into the upper atmosphere. Its metal glinted even in the dim winter light, sleek and unfamiliar. Liari's eyes widened, and her mouth fell open. She froze. It was only one ship. Just one. How could one ship make any difference against the Tharn? The fleet above the planet numbered in the thousands. Their warships were huge, bristling with weapons, capable of destroying a city in a single strike. And here, in the sky above her, floated a single human ship, alone. Liari could not breathe. Then her claws dug into the stone. She could hear her heartbeat in her ears, a loud drum in the silence of the icy ridge. The wind seemed to stop for a moment, as if the world itself held its breath. Inside the ship, the humans were aware of the danger. Captain Daniel Brooks stood at the helm, his hands gripping the control panels. He was tall and strong, with short brown hair and eyes that seemed calm even when danger pressed close. Around him, his crew moved quickly, each performing their duties with precise efficiency. Elena Ward, the tactical officer, watched the radar screen with a frown. "Captain, we are outnumbered," she said. Her voice was steady, but there was an edge of worry. "If the Tharn notice us, they will destroy the ship before we can reach the surface." Daniel shook his head. "We are not here to fight them directly," he said. His tone was firm. "We are here to protect the planet, to give anyone still alive a chance. That is enough." Jason Cole, the pilot, glanced at the captain. "It's crazy," he muttered. "One ship against the whole fleet. They'll tear us apart." Daniel gave a small, tight smile. "Sometimes, Jason, being crazy is the only way to survive. Marcus Lee, the engineer, tapped at the control panel, rerouting energy through the ship's shields and engines. "I'm not sure how much longer the hull can take this kind of strain," he said. "If we have to dodge too many attacks, it won't hold." "Then we make every strike count," Daniel replied. On the ridge, Lyrie watched the ship descend slowly. Its engines glowed bright blue, leaving trails of light that flickered across the ice plains. She noticed something strange. The ship moved differently than the Tharn ships she had seen. It did not fly straight. It weaved, dipped, and spun almost playfully, as if it were alive. The Tharn fleet began to notice the intruder. Giant warships turned, sensors locking onto the human vessel. A Tharn command ship sent a warning beam, red and deadly, cutting a line through the dark clouds above. The beam missed the human ship by meters. Lyrie gasped, her claws tightening around the frost-bitten rock. Inside the human ship, alarms blared. "They've locked on!" Claire Bennett, the communications officer, shouted. "Weapons incoming!" Helena's hands moved quickly over the console. "Evasive maneuvers now," she ordered. The ship shuddered as thrusters fired in bursts. Explosions streaked past outside, rocks and frozen debris flaring in fire. Liari's heart raced. She had never seen anything like this. One small ship dancing among dozens of massive enemy warships, dodging every attack with impossible precision. Then Daniel spoke over the comms. "All frequencies. Broadcast this message across the planet. Make it simple. Make it clear. Tell them someone is here to help." Claire nodded and typed rapidly. The message went out across all bands. "Humans are here. This world is under our protection." Iari froze again. Her mind raced. Humans? She had heard of them, of course. They were legendary across the galaxy. Stubborn, brave, and dangerous. But she had never expected to see one in person. And now, a single ship, led by humans, was standing against the might of the Tharn. The Tarn command ship fired again, this time with full force. Massive energy blast tore through space and the human ship shivered under the impact. Sparks flew from its hull and Marcus cursed loudly. "We can't hold much longer," he shouted. "Then we make it count," Daniel replied. He pressed a sequence of commands into the console, and the ship darted straight into a cloud of floating ice debris. The Tharn shots scattered, hitting frozen chunks instead of the hull. Liari felt a strange mix of fear and awe. She had watched countless battles from the ridge before, but nothing like this. These humans did not fight with strength alone. They fought with cleverness, with courage, and with hope. The sky lit up with streaks of fire as the human ship weaved through the fleet. One Tarn fighter tried to flank it, only to be caught in an explosion set by Jason's daring maneuver. Lyari clutched her chest, breathless, as she saw the small ship strike back in ways she never thought possible. For a moment, it seemed the impossible might be real. One small ship, a handful of humans, could hold their ground against an empire. And then she realized something more. This was not just a fight to survive. This was a message. The humans were saying, without words, that no one was alone. That even in the darkest moments, even when the sky itself seemed to fall, someone would come to help. Liari knelt on the ridge, her face covered in frost, and whispered to the wind, "Are they real? Can they really do it?" Below her, in the icy ruins, scattered Veilori survivors began to emerge from hiding. They had heard the broadcast. Their hope, long frozen and buried, began to stir. The Tarn fleet above hesitated. They had never faced resistance like this. They expected fear, obedience, and surrender. They had not expected clever maneuvers, daring attacks, or a single human ship willing to risk everything to protect an entire world. Liari watched the human ship pull back slightly, giving the Tarn fleet a taste of its cleverness. She did not know if the humans would survive. She did not know if the planet would live. But she knew one thing for certain. She would never forget this moment. The moment when the sky cracked open and hope returned in the form of a single ship. Her body still shivering from cold, her mind still reeling from what she had seen. Liari stayed on the ridge, watching. She did not move. She could not move. She was frozen in shock, but also, somehow, in awe. And in that frozen moment, for the first time in months, the city below her seemed less like ruins and more like a place that could live again. For the humans, the fight had only just begun. But for Liari and for her people, the arrival of one small ship meant everything. She whispered again, barely audible above the wind, "Thank you for coming." And the sky, though cold and endless, seemed to shine a little brighter. The human ship glided above the ice plains, moving faster than any of the Tharn warships could predict. Liari watched from the ridge as it twisted and darted between floating chunks of frozen rock. The Tharn fleet hovered above the planet, massive and silent, waiting for an opportunity to strike. They had never seen anything like this before. One small ship, alone and defiant, weaving through the fleet without fear. Inside the human ship, Daniel Brooks studied the enemy formations. His eyes were sharp, scanning the blips on the screen. "We need to keep them confused," he said. "If they see us as weak, they will attack recklessly. If they see us as dangerous, they will hesitate." Elena Ward nodded. "I can keep them off balance," she said. Her fingers flew across the console. "I'll make it look like we have more ships than we actually do. Maybe even make them think we are preparing a trap." Jason Cole, the pilot, leaned back in his chair, but his hands never left the controls. "It's crazy," he muttered. "One ship against all of them. I don't think I've ever seen something like this survive." Daniel gave a small, tight smile. "Crazy doesn't mean impossible." Marcus Lee checked the engine outputs. "We're pushing the limits," he said. "If we keep dodging like this, the engines might fail. We could lose power mid-flight. Then we make every move count." Daniel replied calmly, "We cannot let them touch the planet. Not even for a moment." Claire Bennett, the communications officer, scanned incoming signals. "Captain, they're trying to communicate," she said. "They don't understand us, but they're sending orders to attack." Daniel nodded.
"Let them. Confusion will slow them down." Outside, Liari's eyes followed the ship as it twisted and turned.
One moment, it seemed to vanish behind a drifting ice shard. The next, it streaked across the sky like a comet. Each time the Tharn fired, the human ship was gone before the beam could hit. Liari's stomach clenched with fear and wonder. How could one ship survive against so many enemies? The Tharn began to divide their forces, sending smaller groups to surround the human vessel. They were cautious now, hesitant. The humans were not behaving as expected. They were not afraid. They did not retreat. Inside the ship, Daniel gave orders quickly. "Elena, keep them chasing shadows. Jason, follow my lead." Marcus, ready the shields for impact. "Claire, record everything. We might not survive, but the message must get through." "Understood, sir." The ship darted through space, weaving between massive Tharn warships. Explosions lit up the sky as energy beams hit ice and debris instead of the hull. Lyra watched her mouth open in awe. The humans were clever, using the environment around them, turning what should have been danger into protection. A Tharn fighter tried to flank the human ship from the left. Jason spun the controls with quick, practiced movements. The ship flipped, dodging the attack, then launched a small energy pulse that disabled the fighter's engine. The Tharn ship spun wildly, slamming into a cluster of frozen debris. Lyra gasped. She could not believe what she was seeing. One ship had done this. One ship had destroyed part of the Tharn fleet without even touching them directly. Daniel glanced at the display. "Good work," he said. "Keep it up. They're not used to this." "They don't expect courage, sir. They don't expect intelligence."
That's our advantage. Liari felt a flicker of hope in her chest.
Perhaps they could survive. Perhaps the humans could make a difference. Her heart beat faster as she imagined the small ship continuing its fight, refusing to surrender, refusing to flee. Suddenly, alarms blared inside the human ship. Marcus shouted, "Hull breach! Left side! We've taken damage!" Jason twisted the controls sharply. The ship spun around a massive ice spire, and the breach was just outside the critical systems. "We're fine for now," Jason said, though his hands were shaking. "We need to stay mobile." Daniel pressed a sequence of buttons and the shields shimmered. "It will hold for a few more minutes. We have to keep moving. No mistakes." Claire monitored communications from the Tharn ships. "They're talking to each other," she said. Duh. They're confused. They expected a scared, weak enemy. They didn't expect this. Daniel nodded.
Exactly. Let them feel that confusion.
"It is our weapon." Liari could see the human ship maneuvering around the larger Tharn ships, dodging blasts and using frozen debris as cover. Each move was calculated. Each strike was precise. She had never seen anything like it in her life. The humans were not only fighting, they were showing the Tharn that strength was not everything. Cleverness, courage, and determination could level the odds, even against a massive empire. A Tarn command ship fired a massive beam aimed directly at the human vessel. Laurie held her breath, expecting the worst. But the ship twisted at the last second, the beam missing by mere meters, slamming into a floating ice shard and exploding in fire. Liari gasped aloud. She had never heard such noise from the sky, and yet, somehow, it was beautiful. It was the sound of courage, the sound of one small force standing against impossible odds. Inside the human ship, Marcus wiped sweat from his forehead. "That was too close," he said. "I don't know how much longer the hull will hold. We make it hold. We cannot fail." Elena coordinated another series of maneuvers, making the humans appear larger and more dangerous than they were. "They think we are more than one ship now," she said. "They are slowing down their attacks, trying to regroup." "It's working. They are not sure what to do." Jason adjusted the ship's angle for another risky maneuver. "If we keep this up, we might actually survive this." Daniel's eyes were steady. "We're not surviving for ourselves. We're surviving for them." He pointed to the planet below, for the people on that surface, for the survivors. They need hope. Liari felt tears sting her eyes. She had not felt hope in a long time. Watching the humans, seeing them risk everything for strangers, she began to believe in something she had almost forgotten. Then, a new danger appeared. A massive Tharn bomber broke through the ranks, its engines glowing red. It fired a weapon designed to crack the ice plains and destroy everything below. Lyari's heart raced. If it hit, the planet could be wiped out in a single strike. Daniel saw it on the radar. "Get ready," he said. "We have one chance to stop it." Elena's fingers flew across the controls. "I can guide the ship close enough to intercept, but it will be dangerous." "I don't care," Daniel said. "Do it." Jason took a deep breath. "Hold on," he said, and spun the ship toward the bomber. The engines roared, the shields glimmered, and the ship darted forward like a lightning bolt. Lyari watched, frozen. The human ship collided with the bomber, its own hull shuddering under the impact. Sparks flew. Energy beams flashed. The bomber spun out of control, crashing into the ice plains far from the city. Lyari gasped, her hands clutching the edge of the ridge. She had never seen such courage. She had never seen anyone risk everything like that for strangers. Inside the ship, Marcus wiped sweat from his brow. "That worked," he said, voice shaking. "But we barely made it." Daniel nodded. "It worked because we had to believe it would." Claire smiled, exhausted but happy. "The message is going out. They will see it."
They will hear it. Elena looked at the captain.
"Sir, we are not just one ship anymore. We are a symbol." Daniel looked down at the planet below. The ice plains seemed less empty. The scattered survivors were emerging from hiding, inspired by the broadcast. Lyari noticed them, tiny shapes moving across the snow. She felt a strange warmth in her chest. Maybe, just maybe, they could survive.
Mo.
Lyari watched as the human ship, battered but unbroken, continued to weave through the Tarn fleet. Each move was clever, each attack precise. One small ship was making a difference. One small group of humans was giving hope to an entire world. For the first time in months, Lyari felt something she had not felt in a long time. She felt hope. And she knew, without a doubt, that the humans would not stop. They would keep fighting. They would keep risking everything, even against impossible odds. Lyari took a deep breath and whispered to herself, maybe we are not alone after all." Above her, the human ship danced among the stars, a single light against a dark sky, refusing to bow to fear or despair. And in that light, Lyari saw something she had thought lost forever, a reason to believe that they could survive. The human ship floated above the icy plains, battered but unbroken. Sparks still flew from small hull breaches, and the engines strained under every maneuver. Lyari watched from her ridge, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and hope. The humans were still alive. They were still fighting, but she knew their situation was growing more dangerous. Inside the ship, Daniel Brooks scanned the radar. The Tharn fleet had regrouped, larger and more organized than before. They had learned from their mistakes, and now they were coming for the humans with full force. Elena Ward moved quickly at her console. "They're sending everything they have," she said. "We can't dodge forever. They'll overwhelm us." Daniel clenched his fists. "We won't dodge forever. We'll do what we have to do. We have to protect the planet, no matter the cost." Marcus Lee shook his head, worry written on his face. "The engines are overheating. The shields won't last long. We are barely holding together as it is." Jason Cole leaned forward, hands tight on the controls. "We can't outrun them. We can't outgun them. What can we do? We do what humans always do when the odds are impossible. We fight smarter, not harder. And if we have to sacrifice ourselves, we do it so others can live. Captain, you really mean that? Even if it costs all of us? Even then, someone has to stand. Someone has to show that courage matters, that hope matters. That life is worth defending. Liari felt a strange warmth in her chest. She had heard stories of human bravery before, but seeing it in action, feeling it through the air as the ship twisted through the Tarn fleet, it was different. It was real. And it inspired her more than anything else had in months. Suddenly, the ship shook violently. An energy blast slammed into the hull. Sparks flew, alarms screamed, and the crew was thrown from their seats. Marcus cursed. Hull breach! Left wing compromised! Shields failing! Daniel's voice rang through the ship. We need to slow them down. We can't let them destroy the planet. Elena leaned over her console, eyes narrowed. There's a Tharn device in orbit. I've never seen one like it. It looks like a planet killer. If they fire it, everything below, everyone, will be gone. Liari gasped. She felt her claws dig into the rock beneath her. A planet killer? She had heard the rumors, the legends. She had never believed it could be real. Jason's voice was tense. We can't outrun that thing. It's too fast.
We can't destroy it from here.
Daniel's jaw tightened. Then we intercept it directly. The crew froze. Marcus looked pale. Are you serious? That device will destroy us if we get too close. We'll die. Daniel's eyes were steady. We'll die anyway if we don't. The planet, the people, the survivors. We have to try. It's insane, but if anyone can do it, we can. Jason swallowed hard. Then let's do it. Liari's heart pounded. She could not believe what she was seeing. The humans were willing to risk everything, not for themselves, but for strangers, for her people, for the planet. Outside, the ship turned toward the massive device in orbit. It glowed red, pulsing with deadly energy. The Tharn command ships tried to intercept, firing everything they had. The human ship twisted and dodged, weaving through fire and explosions. Marcus worked frantically, rerouting power to engines and shields. We can't hold much longer, he shouted. Hold on. Trust the ship. Trust each other. Liari's eyes followed the ship as it moved closer to the planet killer. She felt her stomach twist with fear. This was suicide. There was no other word for it. But the humans moved with determination, refusing to stop. The Tharn fleet tried to block them, sending fighters and energy blasts. The human ship dodged and weaved, striking back when it could. Jason performed maneuvers that no one had ever seen before, each one more daring than the last. Elena directed the attacks, guiding the ship with precision. Left now! Down! Spin! She shouted. Each command was followed instantly, the ship responding like a living creature. Claire monitored communications from the Tarn ships. They're panicking, she said. They can't believe one ship is this fearless. They don't know what to do. Liari could barely breathe. Her chest was tight. She wanted to shout at the ship to be careful, to stop, to retreat. But she knew it would not stop. She knew they would not stop. The human ship reached the planet killer. Daniel set a course directly into the device. Brace for impact, he shouted. Marcus gritted his teeth. We're going to hit it head on. There's no way the hull can take this. Jason spun the ship into a collision path. Lyra's eyes widened. Sparks flew as metal scraped against metal. The device shuddered under the impact, energy flashing wildly. The ship groaned and shook violently, but it held together just long enough. Then, the explosion came. A blinding flash of light lit the sky. The planet killer shattered, its pieces scattering into orbit. The Tarn fleet was thrown into chaos. Many ships were damaged, some destroyed by the debris. Liari dropped to her knees, covering her face from the light. Her heart pounded with relief and fear. She had never seen anything so dangerous, so magnificent, so terrifying. And yet, the humans had done it. They had saved the planet. Inside the ship, the crew struggled to regain control. The engines sputtered, the shields flickered, and sparks flew from every panel. Marcus groaned. "We're barely holding together. The hull is failing."
We did it, he said quietly. The planet is safe.
That is what matters. We actually did it. Jason leaned back, exhausted. "I can't believe it." "We survived," Claire smiled faintly. "For now. But we need to get out of here before the Tarn regroup." Liari watched as the ship drifted, damaged but alive. She could not believe it. One small human ship had destroyed a device that could have wiped out her entire world. One small ship had fought against impossible odds and succeeded. Her heart swelled with hope. Maybe her people could survive. Maybe the planet could be rebuilt. Maybe life could continue after all the darkness. Suddenly, Lari noticed movement on the horizon. More ships were appearing, smaller than the massive Tarn warships, but larger than the human ship. They were coming from faster than light travel, dropping into orbit, one by one. Daniel saw them on the radar. "Reinforcements," he said. "They're here." Elena grinned, exhausted but happy. "We're not alone anymore." The new ships began firing on the Tharn fleet. Explosions lit the sky as the Tharn were forced to retreat. The humans, now reinforced, had turned the tide of the battle. Lari felt tears in her eyes. She had never seen anything like this. She had never imagined that hope could return in such a sudden, powerful way. She watched as the damaged human ship was approached by smaller rescue vessels. Crew members were pulled aboard. Daniel, battered and exhausted, was carried by his teammates. He gave a small nod, tired but proud. Liari could hardly believe it. One ship, and now an entire fleet had arrived. One small act of courage had brought hope and strength to her people. The sky was still dangerous, still filled with fire and debris, but the battle was turning, and it was turning because of humans, because of courage, because of cleverness, because of a refusal to give up. Liari stood on the ridge, shaking from cold and emotion. She had watched heroes risk everything, and she had seen them succeed. She felt something she had thought lost forever: hope. For the first time in months, she smiled. The humans had not just saved the planet. They had shown her people that even in the darkest moments, someone would fight for them. Someone would stand when no one else would. Lari whispered to herself, her voice carried by the wind, "Thank you for showing us." The human ship, though damaged and smoking, drifted through orbit. The reinforcements flanked it, forming a shield against the Tharn. Liari's heart swelled with pride and awe. The humans had done something impossible. They had risked everything for strangers. They had shown that courage and hope could shine even in the darkest sky. And Liari knew that the world below, once shattered and frozen, could now begin to heal. The Tharn fleet retreated into the depths of space, leaving the icy planet of Iridale behind. Smoke and debris floated in orbit, evidence of the battle that had just ended. Lari stood on the ridge, her eyes scanning the sky. The wind still bit at her face, but the silence that followed felt different, peaceful, almost alive. The humans had won, even against impossible odds. Below, the scattered survivors of her people began to move freely. They climbed out of caves, shelters, and ruins. Their faces were pale, drawn from months of fear and hiding, but their eyes shone with something Liari had not seen for a long time: hope. Mothers held children tightly, elders stepped out of shadows, and the few remaining warriors looked at the sky with cautious awe. Liari felt tears in her eyes. She had lived through the darkest days of the Tarn occupation, seen entire families wiped out, entire cities destroyed. She had believed that hope was gone, but the humans had returned it. They had risked everything to save strangers, and for that, she would never forget them. High above, the human reinforcements moved with purpose. Ships of different sizes formed a protective formation around the planet, scanning for any remaining foreign forces. Liari recognized the first small rescue vessels from the damaged ship. They were already descending toward the planet, ready to help survivors and offer medical aid. Daniel Brooks was among the first to step onto Iridale's frozen surface. He was tired, injured, and covered in soot, but he walked with calm determination. Elena Ward, Jason Cole, Marcus Lee, and Claire Bennett followed closely behind him. They had survived a battle that no one expected them to survive, yet here they were, ready to help those they had risked their lives to protect. Liari approached cautiously. She had expected soldiers, yes, but she had not expected kindness. The humans did not look like conquerors. They did not look like masters. They looked like tired travelers, bringing help to people they had never met before. Daniel noticed her standing apart from the others. He smiled gently. "Are you one of the survivors?" he asked. Liari nodded, her voice trembling. I am Liari.
My people, most of them are hiding.
They are afraid. Daniel extended a hand, not as a commander, but as a person.
"We're here to help," he said simply. "No one should be afraid anymore. We are not here to take, only to protect." Liari stared at him, unsure if she had ever seen such courage and calm.
You risked everything for us, she whispered.
"Why?" Daniel looked at the burning horizon of ruins. "Because it is right," he said. "Because someone has to stand when others cannot. Because hope matters, even when it seems impossible." Liari felt a warmth spread through her chest. She had heard of humans before, but she had never believed their reputation could be true. She had seen them only in stories and myths. And now she had seen them in action. One small ship, a single captain, and a crew of strangers had faced an entire empire, and they had won. Around them, the Valori survivors began to emerge. They were cautious at first, unsure of what to make of these new visitors. But when they saw the humans helping each other, carrying supplies, tending to the injured, and speaking gently to frightened children, fear began to fade. One of the older Valori, a man named Rilan, stepped forward. "We thought all was lost," he said, his voice trembling. "We have hidden for months. We have waited for rescue. But we never expected this." Daniel nodded. "You have survived because you refused to give up."
That courage matters. It brought us here.
Liari looked at her people and then back at the humans. The sky, once dark and silent, was now filled with lights from the ships. The stars reflected off the ice plains, sparkling as if celebrating the new day. The humans began organizing medical aid, setting up temporary shelters, and distributing supplies. They worked tirelessly, moving with care and precision. Liari watched them, fascinated. Even after everything they had been through, they still helped others first. "Are you going to help?" she asked gently. Liari nodded. I want to help. I can guide you to the others, to the ones still hiding."
Elena smiled.
"Then let's get started." Together they moved through the ice plains, finding survivors hiding in caves, ruins, and old buildings. Some were too afraid to leave at first, but when Yari spoke to them and pointed out the humans' kind actions, they slowly emerged. Children clung to their parents, elders shook with fear, but everyone came forward eventually. The humans treated each survivor with care. Medical kits were opened, wounds were cleaned, and warm blankets were distributed. Food and water were shared. Liari had never seen anything like it. She had lived under Tharn rule, where life was cheap and fear was constant. And now, for the first time, she felt safety. Daniel noticed Liari leading groups of survivors to the rescue stations. He nodded to Elena. "She's brave," he said quietly. "She reminds me why we fight." Elena smiled. She is a survivor, and now she has hope. As the day went on, Liari began to speak to her people about what she had seen. She told them of the single human ship that had arrived when all seemed lost. She told them of the courage, the cleverness, and the determination that had saved them. Slowly, her people began to believe. Slowly, they began to hope. Even the younger children who had never seen life before the Tarn occupation listened intently. They asked questions about the humans, about the ships, about the bravery that had come from beyond the stars. Liari answered them as best she could, careful not to exaggerate, but also careful to show the truth. Humans would fight, even when it seemed impossible. That evening, as the ice plains cooled and the sky darkened, Daniel and his crew gathered with Liari. The survivors had settled into temporary shelters, and the humans were ready to rest. Liari looked at them, her eyes shining.
"You saved us. He saved us."
Simply, "You don't need to thank us," he said. "You survived." "That is thanks enough," Elena added. "We did not come here to be heroes. We came here to do what was right. You and your people have shown courage, too." That matters just as much. I think I understand now. Courage is not just about fighting. It is about standing, even when the world is against you, even when the sky is dark. Jason chuckled softly. "You've got it exactly right." Marcus looked around at the ice plains. "And maybe, just maybe, the world can start again. Slowly, carefully, but it can start." Liari nodded. She felt hope bloom in her chest, warm and bright. For the first time in months, she believed in the future. She believed in life beyond fear. She believed that her people could rebuild. The humans stayed for several days, helping her people. They repaired broken shelters, shared technology, and trained Veilori survivors in basic defense and communication. Liari watched them work, tirelessly, always patient, always careful. By the time the ships were ready to leave, Liari felt as if she had known the humans forever. She felt gratitude deeper than words could describe. She knew she would never forget them. Daniel addressed the gathered survivors. "We must leave soon," he said, "but know this, we will be watching. We will protect where we can. And you now know that courage can change everything. Even the darkest moments are not the end." Captain, thank you for everything, for showing us that one ship, one small crew, can change the world. Remember that feeling, Liari. Remember that courage and hope are never lost. And perhaps one day your people will return that courage to others. The human ships rose into the sky, engines glowing, leaving trails of blue light across the dark horizon. Liari watched until they disappeared beyond the stars. She stood on the ridge, her body cold, but her heart warm. She could hear the survivors below beginning to rebuild, beginning to hope. The ruins that once seemed endless and lifeless now looked like the start of something new. The ice plains, once silent and empty, now carried the laughter and voices of people learning to live again. Liari felt a deep sense of peace. For the first time in a long time, she looked at the sky without fear. She thought of the humans and their bravery, and she knew that the universe was not as dark as it seemed. Courage, cleverness, and hope had arrived in the form of a single ship, and they had changed everything. Softly, but with conviction, we are not alone.
We are never alone, and we will survive.
The stars above glimmered, reflecting off the ice below. Laurie smiled, knowing that the story of courage and hope would live on. The humans had shown them what it meant to stand when all seemed lost, and now it was her people's turn to rise, rebuild, and protect the future. The wind blew across the plains, carrying snow and whispers of a new beginning. The planet was safe, the survivors were alive, and the humans had returned to the stars. But their courage remained, shining like a beacon for everyone who still had hope. Liari looked at her people, now gathering and working together, and she knew the fight for survival was not over, but it would be fought with courage, not fear. And that made all the difference. The sky above Iredale was no longer silent. It was alive with the memory of what one small ship and one small crew could do, and Yari would carry that lesson forever.